Hey, everybody. Darcy Purcell. It's really good to have you here. And Candace Lawrence is our food as medicine expert and just one of the smartest people I know when it comes to feeding yourself in a very nourishing and healthy way. And so thrilled to have Candace here. She is also an acupuncturist, and side note, she is also a feng shui specialist. So at some point, she does really terrific feng shui classes. I will convince her to join us and teach us a little bit and throw down some feng shui action. Usually with these cooking classes, there's a ton of questions. There are no silly questions. So please put them in the chat as we're going along, and then we will either answer them as we go or answer them at the end. And so I'm just excited that we're going to be exploring nourishing our first and second chakras through the foods that we eat, which is so special. So thank you all. Welcome, Candace. Take it away.
Hi, Darcy. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to be here and talk about two of my favorite chakras and the foods that go along with those two. And so the first chakra is the root chakra, and most people think of it like in this Netherlands right here, but it's really, when you think about it, it's really in between attaching us to the earth. And then the sacral chakra is right below, 2 finger lengths below the belly button. And I'll talk more about what they're about. But the reason I wanted to talk about the first and second chakra is we have heard a lot about eating the rainbow. And why do we want to do that? What's the deal? And so when you eat with intention, like let's just say today, I'm going to make things that have red and yellow, orange fruits in them, or in vegetables. And so we're going to talk about integrating and eating the rainbow with intention. Like we're really like stepping up to the plate and saying, okay, I'm maybe feeling a little anxious, a little off. I'm not feeling grounded. What can I eat, or what can I make to eat that's going to ground and center me more? And of course, a double benefit is when you talk about the foods that are, not only are they grounding, but they grow underground and they're root vegetables. It's a win-win-win-win. So before we started today, I didn't want to make all the noise of my juicer, but what I'll do sometimes before, when I'm making dinner, you come home and you're ravenous and you're not really grounded, and you might be a little bit off your game. The sacral chakra is all about joy and creativity, and you might not be feeling that when you get home, or you finish work, or your busy day. So what I do sometimes is I make a juice to drink while I'm making my dinner. And so I made, look at this beautiful color. Oh my God. So what I made, and you're going to get the recipe, is it's one pretty small beet, 4 carrots cut up into chunks. You don't have to peel anything, just wash it really good. And then 1 red apple. Of course, take the core out because we don't want to be eating those seeds. And so this is what I got out of 4 carrots, 1 beet, and 1 red apple. So it's refreshing. It goes in, and I feel, honestly, that's the way this beautiful juice makes me feel. So if you have a juicer, juicing is way different than just blending things up. So I'm really suggesting that the juicing comes through as it's more nourishing. It actually jam packs more nutrients into you than just blending up these same things. Plus the fact, blending up a raw beet in my world, not the best. So I really like to get my beets in this way, and my carrots and my apple. So if you have a juicer, pull it out and make a juice before dinner. It's a good idea. And if you have other people you're cooking for, you can cut this in half. It's just a little sippy. So we'll put that aside. Now, today, what I wanted to make was a beet hummus. Now, hummus is one of those things, it's universal. Everybody really can wrap their heads around a little hummus. And so this one is made with roasted beets, which again, we talk about the root and they're beautiful. And some people will argue and say, oh, beets taste like dirt. And I'm like, you have to wash them, number one. And then when you roast them, you take and you wrap them into foil, put them in the oven at 350. In an hour, they're soft, and take them out and let them cool. Here's the great thing about beets. I buy my beets, and this is another thing, people go to the grocery store and say, I don't know what to do with that mess. But you know how some beets come with the greens on them? Well, here's some of the greens from these beets that I roasted. So what I do is I'll go through and pick through all the beets that have these beautiful greens, and they're healthy and they're crisp. They look like lettuce, right? And I'll choose the ones with the greens. You cut this off, cut the greens off from the beets, wash everything, get a sink full of water, wash them all really good because they are sandy and they don't rinse them for you ahead of time. So cut these off, put them aside. Now what I'll do with these are jam-packed with nutrients. So what I'll do is I'll saute an onion, maybe a little garlic, some olive oil, and then I will have chopped this all up. And it, of course, remember, it's like spinach. It just shrinks down to nothing. But I'll use this as a side dish, maybe tomorrow night, with whatever protein I'm going to pick. So we have our beets. Now, the other thing is people say, oh, I don't want to be bothered with those beet greens. Well, when you go to the next bin and you see those beets there without the greens, those are usually the older beets. And those will also have a tendency to start tasting a little bit more like the dirt because the beet greens were wilted, so they cut them off. So just some shopping tips for how you buy your beets. Now, I've peeled mine. I peel my roasted beets underwater so that my hands don't turn all red, because I'm telling you, it will look like a bloodbath in your kitchen if you're not careful. And always wear something that's not white when you're cutting up beets. But what I'm going to do for this hummus first is the roasted beets are going to go in. And I think the recipe says a pound and a quarter or something like that. And then the traditional hummus bean is the garbanzo bean. So 1 can of drained, rinsed, organic garbanzo beans, 1 little clove of garlic. You don't want to overpower the whole thing. You say, well, that's not much. It's enough. It'll do it. A half a teaspoon of cumin. Now, cumin is great in hummus, but just as another side note, if you're going to roast carrots with your beets, maybe as another dinner or something, cumin and carrots taste fabulous together. And I think in the cookbook that everybody got, if you were in the original summit, there is a zesty or a zippy carrot dip in there, which has cumin in it. So cumin and carrots, lovely. Like 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. Lemon always pops up those flavors and makes everything just a little bit more, it makes the flavors more vibrant. Now, one thing that is not usually in everybody's kitchen, but I encourage you to get some, is tahini. And tahini is just ground up. It's basically sesame butter. It's just ground up sesames. You're going to look at the size of the container and you're going to say, really, I don't want to buy that whole thing. And so rather than it be one of those things that sits in your refrigerator for the next 6 months to a year, there's a lot of good recipes. You can use some more tahini in your next salad dressing. They're great. So just look up recipes with tahini in it, and you'll use up that jar or container in no time. So we're going to put our tahini in here. So you get the idea that this is jam-packed with like a lot of sesame flavor. So put that
Why do we
aside.
love, Candace, why do we love tahini?
Because it's got such a great flavor. It's sesames, and it's a great protein source. And it's just one of those, it's one of those flavors that's not the norm in how we usually cook. You know how that one dish of what has the roasted sesame oil in it, and we're all just like, ooh. It's the same thing. Sesame is one of those exotic flavors, sort of, for us in the United States. It's a protein source. Believe it or not, there's another we can spin off into seed cycling to balance out your hormones. It has numerous health benefits, and so putting it in here, you put it in for the flavor, but using sesames is just a great all around. You can even toast some, put some aside and toast it, and sprinkle it on top of another salad. And then our olive oil goes in. Now, in the instructions, we're going to blend this up, and in the instructions it says if it's too thick, then we're going to put a little ice water, but we want to not add the ice water first, because sometimes the beets have more water in them. Sometimes the garbanzos have a little bit more fluid. So we don't want to make our hummus too juicy too fast. So don't add, I'm looking for my don't add the ice water until we see how the consistency of it. So we're just gonna can't do life without a food processor. And I'm going to stop for just a second, turn down the sides. And you can see, again, it's while you're cooking too. There's a lot to be said for taking the time out to love yourself. Love yourself enough to make this. Go to the store, get the stuff, or have it delivered, either one. But taking the time for yourself to think about the rainbow of color and think about different ways to introduce. I love it when I don't know how to work my own devices. So while this is, I'm just going to put all this stuff aside. Yeah, let's take a look.
Candace, if we don't have a food processor, is it a taboo to do this in a traditional blender?
You can sure try. What happens in a traditional blender is that they have obviously a narrower base, and so you'll have to be more conscious about everything blending together. It doesn't, sometimes they'll tell you to put like the heavier stuff on the bottom, and that would be the beets and then the beans. So layering it like that might make it even easier. With a traditional blender, you might have to, I would add a little bit of extra olive oil at the beginning. I wouldn't add any more lemon juice, but I'd add a little bit more olive oil just to get things going in the blender, because it has a smaller base and you have to get the stuff on the top down to the bottom and vice versa. So you can do it. I have made hummus in a blender. You can also, if you have a Vitamix, you can make it in there. I just find it easier because I can blend a bigger batch in my food processor. Now I'm going to take this off and hold this up so you can see it. Look at that color. It's gorgeous, right? So this is, boom, this is your root chakra. This is being centered and grounded and, opening yourself up for all the possibilities. And then to have your juice with the orange to also open up your sacral chakra. Holy cow, I can't tell you how excited I am. Now, what I'm going to do with this is I took red pepper, organic red pepper, and organic orange peppers, and I'm going to put a little bit of the hummus onto each one of these. We're just going to layer it in here like this. And hopefully my camera person can get this. And then I have roasted some beets. And it's okay if it comes off just a little bit off your peppers and everything. It's more about getting this to the table in a very appetizing looking way. So we've got our beet and the orange. And so while you're cooking too, you're thinking about, I'm actually enhancing my orange. Look, I got my orange peppers. I could have gotten all red, but I made the intention of getting the orange and the yellow. And then I've toasted some walnuts, which we're going to just sprinkle across the top of this. And look how gorgeous this looks. And you know, red is maybe not the color that you normally think of with a food like a hummus, but here we have a great thing, a great appetizer to take to the table. Anybody who sits at my table, I know they're going to want more of this. So here's the roasted walnut hummus, and here's my beautiful juice that we had earlier. So the orange chakra, you know, it's like, we have to think of it like, when we think of the chakras, they call it the center of passion. And so for me, I think you can hear like cooking and shopping and everything is one of my centers for passion. And I love to do that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like a sexual passion about anything that you could be passionate about in your life. So I encourage you to use like the carrots in the juice, or roast some carrots and have those as your side dish. You know, let's break away from the mini carrots that we throw onto with our sandwich sometimes, and step out of that and step into taking care of in the self-nourishment. And so here you go, roasted beet hummus with walnuts and a carrot apple beet juice. I hope that you all try these, and please send me an email and ask me any questions about these recipes that you want, or if we have some time for chats, we can talk about what other things that you can make with beets. The other day, I made a roasted beet, pistachio, goat cheese salad on top of arugula with a honey Dijon mustard dressing. It was incredible. And I made it for my family. And so stepping out of the things, and you say, oh, that's a lot of trouble. You're worth it. Try some of these things. So I hope there's some questions, Darcy, about anything that I've talked about today, or let's talk about anything in general to do with food.
No, this is great. Could you slowly explain how to roast your own beets, and we will make sure that people understand that.
Yes.
Let's go back to that. That's because I think there is this is too difficult. I mean, even myself, I mean, I've been inspired since I know you've done a number of beet recipes, but only because you've explained it to me like 5 times. So if you could share that again, that would be great.
Sure. Now,
where is she going with the camera? What is she doing?
I'm just bringing it closer. I'm just bringing it closer.
You know what? I'm going to go in and get some of my beets, and I'm going to, is that all right? We have time to, I'm going to show
Yeah,
everybody
absolutely.
how to do this. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Hang on just a second. I'm going in.
because it's much simpler than you think, and it can feel very nourishing to do this yourself.
Going in. Hang on. Okay, here we are. All right. So this, am I going to go to an angle? This is one of the beets that I got. It came with all the greens on the top of it. I cut those off. I put the beets and the greens into water. There's little things that grow off a beet. It grows underground. It's like a potato. So, you know, people will even be kind of leery about doing this, but don't worry about any of that. So here's my beet. I'm going to take it. My oven is turned on to 350. I'm going to take my beet, put it in the foil. I have a couple here. Here's another little cutie. You can see I put the tops and all, put it right into the foil. And this hummus, I used 3 beets. So I'm going to take, look, here's my roots and everything on it. They're scrubbed, but I'm going to put all 3 of them in here. I wrap them up completely. No olive oil, no nothing. But key is when you wrap them up, make sure that all the folds are on the top of what you put. This goes on the bottom. Make sure this is on the top because they do get juicy and you do not want beet juice running all over your oven. So into the oven they go. I even put mine in. It's like, oh, I don't want to wait for 350. I put mine in just as soon as I turn the oven on. I put them in, and the standard rule of thumb is for 3 beets, which will make your hummus, which will make the roasted beet salad, everything. The standard rule of thumb is 1 hour. So you put these in, walk off and forget them, 350, set your timer. And when they come out, let them cool. I've done that before. And so what I'll do is the peel will then be soft. So I will go over, I'll get my little paring knife and I'll cut this off. I'll cut this off. And then I will, if the peel doesn't slide off by itself, which it will sometimes, that's awesome. I'll use my little paring knife to cut off the outside peel. And so then you have this beautiful red, vibrant red beet. And put that aside, do it for all 3 or all 4, and then you can chop them into whatever size you want. You can slice them. Do you remember my mom used to make pickled beets, and basically all it was like vinegar and oil and salt and pepper, and she'd have sliced beets and put it in there, and that was a condiment or a side at dinner. So that's roasting a beet. It's just like, you know, you roast a potato, you put it in the foil, put it in the oven. This one, when it comes out, you cut whatever's, you know, not pretty on it, cut that stuff off, peel the outside peel off and chop it into whatever size or shape you want it to be. It's magic.
And if you were roasting, so are there 2 ways to roast it? Like you can bake it or in the foil, but can you peel them and cut them and put them in like you would roast squash or another vegetable?
Here's the beauty of that. That's a great question. Here's the beauty of that. If I was going to just roast a beet like I would a squash or a sweet potato or anything else in little chunks on a cookie sheet, I would cut this part off, make this was really scrubbed up, and then I would just cut it into chunks. I wouldn't peel it. That's even easier. I wouldn't peel it. A lot of recipes, I've made a beet and orange salad, and you don't have to. You know, it doesn't, depending on the, you know, of course, my beets are really, they're organic, they're fresh because I know those greens on them. But I just roast the peel and all. You can peel them and put them on the sheet. It's up to you. It's preference. It's completely taste preference. But you then put them in the oven just like you would roasting anything else. I usually, if I'm going to roast like that, it's a little higher. I would probably go 375 or 400. And then after like 10, 15 minutes, I'd check to see if they're fork tender. Now, at that point, then they would get a coating of olive oil before they went in. And I would probably, because my other best friend is parchment paper, I would probably put parchment paper on the cookie sheet to make that all work well.
And then we have a question about the not so pretty bits. Do you have to cut those off, or do they get thrown in when you're making your hummus, or can you just leave them on?
No, I cut that off. That isn't, you know, that's just, it's not because there's anything wrong with it, but because it's so fibrous. This probably wouldn't grind up as quickly as the rest of the beet. And so in a hummus, you know, the idea of a hummus is that it's smooth and creamy, and you would either have to work at it more, and especially if you're doing a blender, there's no way I would put this in because these little buggies are tough, and until you saute them or something. So I would cut the end off, this off, and then the rest would be roasted, chopped, whatever.
And then when it comes to, and that's brilliant. And again, I hope everyone feels that beets are accessible to them. I swear, the first time I was scared to make them myself, and it worked. It was delicious. Somebody Julia asked for the recipe for the salad that she made the other night, the beet and orange salad. I'm wondering if that is in our cooking with color cookbook. Or not. If
I
it's,
think that the beet
I-
and orange is
it
in
might
there.
be. So
Mhm.
if we will make sure that everyone gets a copy of that book. There are a lot of terrific recipes in there as well.
Mhm.
And then the recipes tonight will also be in the portal. Beans, couple bean questions.
Always.
Two, yeah. Now, okay, two, does it have to be garbanzo beans? And then to soak beans or not, or canned beans? Doesn't
Oh,
matter.
yeah. Number one, it does not have to be garbanzo beans. I have made white bean when the white bean is the cannellini bean. Specifically because navy beans have a coating, excuse me, a little husk on the outside of them, even when they've been cooked and canned and everything else. The cannellini beans are the best ones that I like to use other than cannellini beans, other than the garbanzo beans. So it does not have to be garbanzo beans. However, let's talk about to soak, not soak, pressure cook, everything else. Purists who have the time and use their Instapot, you can make delicious, delicious beans in the Instapot, or soaking them and boiling them. And you take off the, there's recipes all over Google or YouTube about how to soak and make your beans and everything else. And I salute anyone who wants to do that. It's great. The health benefits one over the other. The jury is out. I buy organic beans that are non-BPA on the inside of the can, and that's what I have time for. I do not have time to soak my beans and overnight and everything else. So if you have that time and you really, I salute you, because that's really a gift of love for anybody that's going to get those beans. But my gift of love is I don't have enough time to do that. So these are what happens at my house.
Well, it's a barrier to entry. Like, you're not even gonna cook the nutritious food because of the soaking. So yeah.
No. And so, there, and I bring this point up, and I really am emphatic about this. Beans are one of the highest fiber foods we can eat. And depending on which diet you're going for this week, Whole30, keto, paleo, any of them, they're going, no beans, no beans. And I challenge each of you, 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day is a hobby. And unless there's some beans making up part of that, man, it is hard to get there. And so all of these other diets and everything else, they're really lacking in fiber. And fiber is my answer to just about everything.
Yeah, can you take a moment to just speak to why fiber is so important for all of us? And
Yes,
I know we're going down a baby rabbit hole, but like
I know
a couple of the powerhouse fiber items, I'm always shocked when you share them. So share.
So fiber, anybody says, I say, eat more fiber, and they say, oh, I poop just fine. And that like pooping is like number 5 on the list of the benefits of fiber. So in our small intestine, we have these beautiful the lining of our small intestine, we have these beautiful little villi. And in those villi are, what sits up there are neurotransmitters. 85% of the neurotransmitters in our body are up here in these little villi. So when the food that has fiber in it passes over those little villi and tickles them, they in turn send messages up to the brain to release dopamine and serotonin, because when they get tickled, that means that these foods that this person is eating are high nutritive value. Things like Doritos, you might get a crunch when they're in your mouth, but they have no fiber. Steak and eggs, no fiber. So when you eat vegetables and fruits, more fiber, more tickling. Nuts, more fibering, more tickling, more neurotransmitters going up and registering and making happy neurotransmitters, happy dopamine and serotonin. Now, the other cool thing about fiber, soluble and insoluble, is think of it like sticky tack, like sticky tack. When you know that we're bombarded with over 150 chemicals before we leave our house in the morning, something has to get rid of them. And so fiber-based foods will go through and absorb not all, but most of those toxins. So they gently show them the door that if you're not eating those fibered foods, that those toxins can get reabsorbed and move through your system. Some people say for years. So fiber, avocados are on the top of the list. Who doesn't love an avocado? Right next to them are our beans. We got to have our beans. Then we've got nuts, and then we've got all of our veggies. And you'll be amazed. And people say, oh, I eat a salad every day. No, take that salad apart and type in on the Google and say, how many grams of fiber are in these 3 pieces of carrot? Not much. So you have to get the idea about eating enough of these fibrous foods to get up to 25 to 30 grams a day. I'm not kidding you. People say, oh, I need to lose weight. Oh, I need to do this. If nothing else, if the only thing you do is eat fiber foods, 25 to 30 grams, you are going to be amazed at how fabulous you feel. So I'm all in the fiber camp, the beans, the nuts, the veggies. And don't forget about my dear friend chia. Chia is that magic food that the Aztecs or one of those used to eat and run for hundreds of miles. It's protein, it's fiber, it's actually hydrating because it pulls more fluids and water into your system. So the seeds are also a great thing to add to any meal, and chia pudding. Who doesn't love that one? So I'm the fiber queen. You got to know fiber is the answer.
And I think we have a turmeric and chia smoothie in the book as well, which again, circles back to this. Can you share the number of grams of fiber in an avocado? Because I always find that really interesting. And then I just find ways to put avocado in smoothies and, salads and eggs and whatever.
Yeah. Even avocado in ice cream. They now have, you can even make it yourself. So the avocado is usually, depending on the size of the avocado for the whole thing, 10 to 12 grams of fiber. It's remarkable. So when you put that, in a salad, and you even half an avocado, and then I will put this out there because I hear this all the time. Oh, if I eat avocados, I'm going to get fat. No, those are the good fats. That's the good fiber. That's what your body wants. You need those fats along with the fiber to make your cells happy. Period. End of story. You've got to have the fats.
I know you've spoken to this before. If there's a craving, a sugar, like a sweet craving, the avocado or making sure you have a satiating meal with those.
Yep.
Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So let's just say, this is what usually happens. So you either finish a big lunch or your dinner, and then all of a sudden you're like, and the sugar cravings start. Well, take again, this is another time to be centered and take a couple deep breaths and say, okay, what's happening here? And you will realize 9 times out of 10 that meal, whatever it was didn't have enough fiber, it didn't have enough fats, it didn't have enough protein. And so your body and your brain are really, really smart. And it says, oh, we need some more energy to get through this day. We know where to get it. Let's throw in some sugar cravings. So if you back the bus up ahead of time and you say, okay, I'm going to make sure that, think about it. If you're going to go for 30 grams a day, there's got to be 10 at breakfast, 10 at lunch, 10 at dinner. And I say, okay, so I've got my fiber, then I'm going to have my fats, which is, 35%, 30 to 40% of your calories should be from fats. Then I'm going to throw in some protein. I guarantee you, if you get something like that going on your plate, you will not get those sugar cravings like you did. It's amazing how that works.
And then the other thing I know that we get questions on is organic. Is it really that important? And I love your explanation about why it's important. So share.
Okay, so two things. Picture this. You're driving into the grocery store, you got your little cart, right? And you walk up to the grocer and you say, hello, could you direct me to all of your vegetables and fruit that are insecticided, pesticided, and herbicided? Because I really want to eat those on top of all my really good veggies. And that's basically, if you're not eating organic, that's basically what you're saying. And then people will argue with me and, well, somebody said that there's blow off from the next field. Maybe, but it certainly isn't as bad as what's in that field that they already did spray. And when you're making a choice of not eating organic, you are making some shopping decisions for your liver, because our poor little livers need to have everything as pure as it can possibly be. Because remember, those 150 toxins that we're exposed to just before we leave our house, our livers are working harder than they ever have to make sure that everything is purified. And if you're throwing in insecticides, herbicides, and pesticides along with everything else, the liver is going, holy cow. And then you throw in some wine at night and it's like, okay, I'm not in good shape here. So if we can take the burden off the liver and take the burden off our kidneys and everything else, it's a win-win-win. And is organic priced higher? Yes. But what's cheaper, eating healthy or your co-pays and being sick? Because eventually it all catches up eventually. And so, and if you are on, a grocery budget, then look at the clean 15 and the dirty dozen. And if only those, that if it's the clean 15 and the dirty dozen, if you look at those two things and say, okay, these are the fruits and veggies that have to be organic. And if they're not organic, don't eat them. And then the clean 15, the dirty dozen. So even if that's a good guideline and you say, okay, well, I'm not buying an organic banana, I don't blame you. That you can peel that. So the peel hides it from most of the stuff that's sprayed on it. Same with an orange or things like that. They don't really have to be organic if they're not on either one of the lists. So that's safe.
Candace, I really like that idea to remind people that those lists and those are on the environmental working group is where you would get the latest, and it changes every single year, guys. And it's surprising what shows up on the list. So definitely take a look at that. What I like is one of the little sayings you shared, and I always chuckle, is you're either going to pay for organic, they're either going to clean it or your liver's going to clean it. Like somebody's got to make sure it's clean. And if we're also taking a look from an energetic perspective, and that our liver processes so much energy and it holds on to anger and fear and resentment, it's important. I mean, what a beautiful gift. And as I'm even saying it, I'm feeling lighter. So taking care of your liver is like super important. Someone is asking, would you explain again how high fiber beans can mesh with a low carb keto diet? I'm confused. Convince me.
Okay. And I will tell you right now, they don't. The keto diet and beans, they're not even in the same book. They're not even in the same chapter. They're not in the same book. And so I will argue to anyone that any of my patients or anyone that I consult with, the keto diet is designed to be short term. The keto diet is designed to get people's sugar cravings. We all have this continuum that we can be on. You can be a sugar burner or you can be a fat burner. And so this continuum, most people end up over here with the carbs and the sugars and everything else. Keto is that you're a fat burner and it takes you longer to process your foods and everything else. I feel that there's this beautiful center point. A keto diet is wonderful for someone who has some sort of chronic illness, who's really needs to clean up that sugar is feeding unnatural cell growth in their bodies. They have severe inflammation. There is a place for a true ketogenic diet. The other thing I will argue is a lot of people say, I'm keto, but they're not really completely keto because all they're doing is eating protein. To really be keto, you have to be on top of how many ketones you're producing every day, how much fat you're actually eating. And so yes. And so there is a place for keto, and beans and keto are not in the same book. Beans and paleo are not in the same book. Beans and Whole30, not in the same book. But one of the first things that every person that I'm a keto coach. Every person that comes in front of me and says, what's one of the first thing that happens? They're all constipated. So, there's mindful eating. And Dr. Wall from the University of Iowa, she has the Wall protocol. And I love her explanation of what we should eat every day. 3 heaping cups of colored vegetables, 3 heaping cups of greens from a variety of sources, 3 heaping cups of sulfur-laden vegetables, and grass-fed meat. If you ate that, I've tried it. And at the end of day 2, I was counting my cilantro as one of my greens, rich, packed with stuff. And so you have to look at the purpose behind keto. What is your purpose? If you have an illness or you have some impetus to start eating differently and get off the sugar, I wholeheartedly support that. I am not against keto, but your question was keto and beans. They're not in the same thought pattern. They just aren't. Because in a keto diet, there's very, very few places to get a significant amount of fiber. And the same with all the other diets that I mentioned. And I am more aware of what's happening to our livers and our digestive system and the amount of toxins that are coming through us. And so I am more of a proponent of eating high fiber, high fat, whatever that looks like. And so in my world, in order to get 25 grams of fiber consistently every day, you have to throw beans in there. You just do.
And Dr. Joel Furman speaks to that as well. But I really like what you're saying in terms of keto having its place, Whole30, paleo, but finding what works for you. Beans in terms of weight gain and that sort of thing. What are your feelings on that?
So I would challenge anyone to, again, we go back to that 25 grams of fiber a day, 25 grams of fiber a day, 30 grams of your calories, 30 grams of calories every day. So let's just say you're eating a 1200 calorie or 1500 calorie diet. You're a female under 5'6". Your caloric intake needs to be a little bit higher if you're taller than that. But so let's just work within the 1200 to 1500 calorie a day intake. 30% of those calories should be from fats, 25 to 30 grams of fiber, and then at least 50 to 60, if not more, grams of protein every day. And if you eat like that, you will lose weight. And when you put it all down every day, you're going to go, oh my God, I've never eaten this much food. Which brings us right into, a lot of people have heard about the intermittent fasting, or interval fasting, intermittent fasting, whatever you call it. And they say, oh, I really lost weight. Well, there's a difference between losing weight and starving. And so, these people get up, and for women especially, the most important is the 14-10. 14 hours of fasting, 10 hours of eating. So when you get up and you eat your last meal 2 hours before you go to bed, so you've got enough time to digest it. You get up, let's just say at 7, maybe by 9 or 10 o'clock, okay, your 10 hours of eating starts. At that time, when that 10-hour window opens, there should be what? 10 grams of fiber, enough fats, protein, and everything else. It's not that little bar that you take to the gym. It's not enough. And so on the onset, will you lose weight? Sure, you're cutting calories. Of course, most people would, a lot of calories. And so then some people will say, oh, I'm still full from lunch, and they won't eat dinner. Well, that's the little primitive area of your brain that registers, how's this body doing? How's this body doing? It'll say, uh-oh, we are starving. And then guess what that little primitive area, the signals it sends downstream, it goes, shut down metabolism, not enough coming in. Because then what does everybody do on top of that? They want to lose weight, they exercise more. So this little primitive area of the brain that's in charge of everything, it says, okay, we're starving and now we're running away from something. Shut down metabolism, we're gonna die. And so this is why, you know, you go to the doctor and they say, eat less and exercise more. And everybody comes in and says, I'm gaining weight. I can't tell you, there is a couple big exercise programs out there. I can't tell you, there's one of them. Every woman that came in my office said, I joined this and I gained 10 pounds. Well, of course, it's like this run, stop, run, stop. And so your body goes, we are in deep trouble, right? So fiber, fats, protein. If you ate like that and ate that much, you'll be amazed at how much, number one, and the whole idea behind it is how good you feel. Because once you start feeling good and you've got energy and you're sleeping well, holy cow, the world is your oyster. It's amazing.
I want to make sure people understand one of the things you mentioned. You said women and intermittent fasting, and I think you said 14-10, which is very different than a lot of other people. And I know you've been doing this for years and years and years. So I want you to explain the women and intermittent fasting and that cadence.
Okay, so women, we are really from a different planet than men. And that goes without saying. Men can do that 16-8. They can rough it out for 24 hours. But women's adrenals, which is where this all comes back to, our little adrenals that sit on top of our kidneys, our adrenals are in fight or flight and nurture and protect more than men. And so those adrenals are sending little signals up to that little primitive area of the brain all day, every day. There's hundreds of hormone signaling going on in our body. How's everybody doing? We're doing pretty good. We got enough food. We got enough water. Everybody's pretty good. Got enough sleep. When you start to cut down on the number of calories that are coming into the body, the woman's body reacts quicker and harder than a man's. And you want to blow out your adrenals, do 16, do it. And everything, it's like driving the train. How fast the train is going, it takes a while for it to stop. And with our bodies, it takes a while before we get sick. But I can guarantee you that you go down and start doing a more intense fasting. Again, there's a place for it, but it isn't in our daily, just a woman in her 30s, 40s, 50s who says, oh, I'm ready to lose weight. I've read that this is going to work. It will short term, again, because you're starving. And those little primitive area of the brains, and ours are more hardwired than a male, plus the fact that when we start to even get into our between like 38 and on, our ovaries are starting to go, and they're starting to slow down production of the female hormones, the estrogens, the progesterones. So your body still needs them. So guess what happens? They go, adrenals, you do it. And the adrenals are over here going, wait a minute, I am so damn stressed right now, I can't even handle it. And now I've got to start producing more of this. So you see this whole fasting thing the autophagy and the science behind it is incredible. And do we need to allow a certain amount of time for our cells to clean out? You bet. Our brains need it. We know now that there's a lymphatic system in the brain, and all these toxins need to get out of our system without a doubt. I'm all over 1410 for women. Men can do the 16-8 or whatever, 24 or whatever, but women aren't designed like that. You're going to burn out.
Yeah, unless you have an illness, if you're, a doctor, it's like keto. There's a time and a place for longer fasting. But
Yes.
I just really want, I know you knock that home so much. I just wanted to give you the platform to have that conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
What I really love. Oh, go ahead.
Well, again, I want to say, I understand and I support everyone that's going through some sort of a health issue, a health crisis, or whatever it is. You're in a different situation. And as I say many times, desperate times call for desperate answers. And so for short term, to get your cells cleaned out, to get you off the sugars, to do all these things short term, great. Embrace a longer fasting, embrace the keto diet, but long term, it's not sustainable for our bodies. There you go.
Well, and long term is nourishment and really
Exactly.
self-care, making some beet hummus. And
Hummus.
it's delicious. There's a question, what is short term? And I'm gonna let you answer. I have my own thoughts on what short term is.
Mhm.
But go ahead.
If you are in a critical care situation, then short term is something that you've talked about with your healthcare practitioner, depending on how long, how deep this situation or the chronic illness is. That will indicate it somewhat. Short term, if you are just if you don't have health concerns, short term to me is a month at the longest, like 2 months. There isn't enough nutrients, and no offense to everybody that's on this call, but we're not designed to take the amount of time. Believe me, I mean, Darcy and I have done this. We have gone through and done a keto fast, and it's hard. And I love to cook. I understand everything there is to do about adding in the fats and everything else. And so I call baloney on people that are eating, and they say they're eating keto long term, because it's really hard. And so a month, 2 months, and you're measuring your ketones with blood strips rather than urine, because the blood strips are a more accurate determinant of whether you're in ketosis or not. Maybe a month, maybe 2. And then I would say go into exactly what I'm talking about: fiber, fats, protein.
Yeah, nourishment. Nourish your body. And paying attention. And as we wrap up, I just want to say what I love is a reminder: cooking with intention and sprinkling on tomatoes on a salad and calling that your red, and just taking that moment to pause before you eat and taking in what you've created. Or what you've picked up. Like we're talking about cooking something, but also, there's a lot of great pre-made things that Candace might approve of. So yeah. Is there anything else you would like to say, Candace, in closing?
Eat with intention. Cook something. Love yourself up. Cook something. It doesn't have to be hummus. It might, start easy. Make some juice. Do, say, okay, this week I'm going to try one new vegetable, and say, good for me. At the end of the week, I ate it 3 times. Good for you. So just, little baby steps, and it'll build, and you'll start going, oh yeah, I ate asparagus last week. I'm going to eat green beans this week. And you go to the store with that in mind, and you just look up some recipes and say, okay, I make stuff on Sundays, and this is what I'm going to make this week. So thinking more about not getting caught in those hunger, hangry, anything's going to work at this point. That's really the way to set your whole body up for inflammation. So.
And you have dealt with people for the last 20 years doing this and guiding them through this simple, nourishing way to live life.
Yes.
Our next cooking class, we're gonna just focus on the solar plexus. And I decided, Candace, that we're going to focus on the things that everybody loves to talk to you about, leaky gut. So we will stay in that solar plexus and we will talk through all of the beautiful questions that people have around all of the gut issues that exist, because you are the guru when it comes to all of that. So that'll be, and we'll toss in some histamines because that always comes up, and all the things. So let's just have a lot of fun on the next one. But thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
For this time and teaching us how to eat better. And we will, you will also have access to Candace. And so we will make sure you have her email and website and all that great stuff. And we'll make sure everyone has a copy of the cookbook, if the cookbook and guide. And thank you so much.
Yeah, Darcy, I'm going to be doing something too in the near future. So if anybody wants to shoot me an email and says, yes, I'm interested, I am having a 5-day muffin challenge.
Yes. Oh, that's happening. You're ready for it?
I'm ready. I've got all my videos, and we're going to be ready to go. So if anybody wants to jump onto the muffin challenge, get some friends, they're real yummy muffins, and you eat muffins every morning. What could be better?
Well, and the point of the muffin challenge is what?
To introduce people to ways to get off the gluten, off the sugar, and still find things that taste fabulous with ground chia in every one of them.
Yeah, ground chia is one of the best things you could possibly, or chia in general, everyone, you're just going to keep hearing it over and over again. It's structured water. It's wonderful. Well, thank you. And we'll share more information when the muffin challenge is ready. I'm totally down for a muffin challenge.
Okay. See you later.
Thanks so much, Candace. Take care, everyone.
Bye.